It was a quiet Friday morning, and the factory floor was buzzing as usual. Machines hummed in the background while the smell of oil and metal filled the air. He had been working extra hours that week, trying to save up before the baby came. Every time he looked at the calendar on the wall, he counted the days, imagining the moment he would hold his child for the first time. He couldn't wait to become a father. Even though he and his wife had faced their share of ups and downs, the thought of their baby always brought him peace. They had been waiting for this for so long. He often pictured her sitting at home, resting, maybe reading one of those baby care books she loved. During his lunch break, he sat on an old bench near the loading area, took out his phone, and opened Facebook. He scrolled absent-mindedly through posts about other people's lives. A wedding here, a new car there. Then suddenly a photo caught his attention. It was his wife. At first he smiled automatically. She was in a hospital bed, her hair messy, but she was smiling, a kind of tired, glowing smile. And in her arms was a baby wrapped in a blue blanket. His heart stopped for a second. He blinked, trying to make sense of it. The caption under the post read, "Welcome to the world, our little miracle." He froze, the phone trembling in his hand. His mind went blank. Our little miracle? He whispered to himself. He hadn't received a single call. No message, nothing. He didn't even know she had gone into labor. He quickly checked the time on the post. It had been uploaded 2 hours ago. 2 hours, and he had found out through social media. At first he thought maybe it was a surprise. Maybe she wanted to tell him in person. But as he looked closer at the picture, something felt strange. In the corner of the image, just behind her bed, he noticed a jacket draped over a hospital chair. It wasn't hers. It wasn't from the hospital either. It was a jacket he recognized instantly. His brother's. A faint panic began to rise inside him. He zoomed in on the photo, his thumb shaking. It was definitely the same jacket. Dark brown leather with a scratch mark on the right sleeve from when his brother fell off his bike months ago. There was no doubt about it. He sat still for a moment, staring at the image as the world around him blurred. Workers laughed somewhere nearby, a forklift beeped, but all he could hear was the pounding in his chest. Why was his brother there? Why wasn't he? He tried calling his wife immediately. No answer. He tried again. Still nothing. Then he called his brother. The call rang once, twice, and then went to voicemail. He sat there staring at the screen like it would somehow explain everything. He wanted to believe there was a good reason. Maybe his wife had gone into labor suddenly. Maybe his brother was just the closest person around to help her. That had to be it. Still, something in his gut didn't feel right. He sent a text. "I just saw the post. Why didn't anyone call me? Is everything okay?" Minutes passed. No reply. He went back to work, but his mind was far away. Every sound around him, the clanging, the whirring, the shouting, faded into background noise. He couldn't focus. His thoughts kept circling back to that picture. After his shift ended, he sat in his car for a long time before driving home. The sky was dark, streetlights glowing through the drizzle. He kept checking his phone, hoping for a message from her, but the screen stayed blank. Finally, when he reached home, he saw a single text. It was from his wife. "I was in labor. Everything happened so fast. Sorry I couldn't call." That was it. No emotion. No picture of the baby sent directly to him. Just a short message that felt cold and distant. He read it again and again, hoping it would make sense. It didn't. He typed back, "Is the baby okay? Are you okay? I'm coming tomorrow." She didn't reply. That night he lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The fan made a low humming sound above him, but his thoughts were louder. The image wouldn't leave his mind. The jacket. The chair. The way his wife's smile seemed forced, like she was trying to hold something back. He started remembering things. Small, ordinary moments that suddenly felt strange now. Like the way his brother had been dropping by their house more often over the past few months. Always offering to help her with groceries or fixing something around the house while he was away at work. He'd thought it was kindness. After all, his brother had always been close to them both. But now he wasn't sure what to think. He remembered one evening when he came home early and found his brother already there, sitting on the couch, laughing with her over something on her phone. It hadn't seemed like much at the time, but now that memory burned in his mind. He wanted to believe there was an explanation. He wanted to trust them, but doubt had already planted itself deep inside him. The next morning, he woke up early and drove straight to the hospital. The city was still waking up, shops opening, traffic building. He parked outside and walked quickly to the maternity ward, his heart pounding. When he entered the room, his wife was lying on the bed, cradling the baby. She looked pale but calm. "You're here," she said softly. He nodded, forcing a smile. "Of course I'm here. I just wish I had known sooner." She looked away. Everything happened so suddenly. "I didn't have time to call." He wanted to be angry, but seeing the baby quieted him. The tiny face, the small fingers gripping the blanket. It was beautiful. He leaned in to look closer, and for a brief moment he felt the love he had always imagined. But then he noticed something else. Sitting in the corner beside the hospital bag was that same jacket. His brother's jacket. He stared at it, his chest tightening. He tried to stay calm. "Did my brother come here?" he asked. She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, he was the one who drove me here. I was in pain and couldn't reach you. He was nearby." Her voice was steady, but her eyes didn't meet his. He nodded slowly. "Right, and he stayed with you?" "Just until I gave birth," she said. Then he left. The room felt heavier now. He wanted to ask more, but the nurse entered, smiling at the baby, and the moment was gone. He sat quietly, holding the edge of the bed. He wanted to be happy. He wanted to believe her. But his heart told him something wasn't right. Later, while his wife was resting, he stepped out into the hallway. He dialed his brother's number again. This time it rang 3 times before going to voicemail. He didn't leave a message. He didn't even know what to say. When he returned to the room, his wife was asleep, the baby beside her. He stood by the window, looking out at the rain streaking down the glass. He felt a strange mix of love, confusion, and fear. He told himself he was overthinking, that families help each other, that maybe his brother was just being supportive. But deep inside, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was being hidden from him. On his way out, he glanced once more at that brown jacket. The scratch mark on the sleeve caught the light and his stomach turned. He walked out of the hospital into the cold air, not sure what to believe anymore. When he got into his car, he saw a message notification. His phone buzzed in his hand. It was from his brother. "Just one line. We need to talk." He sat there, gripping the steering wheel as rain tapped against the windshield. 100 thoughts raced through his mind, none of them comforting. He didn't know what his brother wanted to say, but deep down, he already feared the answer. The baby, the photo, the silence. It all felt like pieces of a puzzle he didn't want to solve. As he started the car and drove home, the image of the Facebook post replayed again and again in his head, each time feeling heavier than before. He sat in the car for a long time after reading that message from his brother. "We need to talk." Those 4 words kept echoing in his head over and over. His hands rested on the steering wheel, but he didn't start the engine. The rain outside had stopped, but the air still felt heavy, like the whole city was holding its breath. He finally drove home, though he could barely focus on the road. His mind was tangled with questions. What did his brother want to talk about? Why now? Why not before? Every mile he drove made the questions louder. When he reached home, the house was quiet. The living room light was still on, and the blanket on the couch was folded neatly, the way his wife always did it. But something about the silence didn't feel peaceful. It felt like a pause before something breaks. He sat down, unlocked his phone, and stared at that short message again. For a moment he thought of calling his brother back, but then he remembered the hospital photo, the jacket, the silence that followed his calls. He placed the phone face down on the table and leaned back, closing his eyes. He could almost hear his wife's laughter from months ago, before everything started feeling strange. He missed that version of her, the one who used to wait up for him after late shifts, the one who'd text him small things just to make him smile. He didn't know when the distance began. Maybe it was when his work hours got longer. Maybe when she started going out more, saying she needed to walk and clear her head. Maybe when his brother started showing up more often, just to help out. He had trusted them both. That thought hurt the most. His phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a text. His brother was calling. He stared at the screen for a few seconds, then answered. "Hey." His brother's voice came through, calm but low. "You saw the post, right?" "Yes," he said slowly. "I saw it." There was silence on the other end. "I should have told you earlier," his brother said. It all happened really fast. She called me in the middle of the night saying she was in pain. I was the only one who picked up. You were probably asleep and she couldn't wait. His brother's words sounded practiced, like he'd repeated them in his head before saying them aloud. So you drove her there? He asked. Yes, that's all. I just took her there, stayed until she gave birth. She asked me to stay because she was scared. That's it. He stayed quiet. His brother's story made sense on the surface, but something felt off. After a long pause, he said softly, "Whose jacket was that?" "What jacket?" "The one in the picture. The brown leather jacket. The one with the mark on the sleeve." Another pause. This one was longer. Then his brother said, "Yeah, that's mine. I left it there when I went to get her water. Didn't realize it was in the photo." He could almost hear his brother's heartbeat through the phone. "I'll come see you tomorrow," his brother added. "We should talk in person." Before he could say anything, the call ended. He sat there staring at the phone again, his stomach twisting. He didn't know what to expect anymore. That night, sleep didn't come easily. Every sound, the ticking of the clock, the faint wind outside, pulled him back to his thoughts. He turned from side to side, trying to convince himself he was just being paranoid. But no matter how hard he tried, the doubt wouldn't go away. The next morning, sunlight slipped through the curtains, lighting up the empty side of the bed. He sat up slowly, rubbed his eyes, and checked his phone. No new messages. No calls. He decided to visit the hospital again. This time he brought flowers. Not because he wanted to, but because it felt like something he was supposed to do. Something normal. Something that might make everything feel right again. When he entered the room, his wife looked surprised. She smiled faintly, but her eyes seemed tired, almost guarded. "You didn't have to come again," she said softly. "I wanted to," he replied. He placed the flowers on the side table and looked at the baby sleeping peacefully in the cradle. A small smile tugged at his lips. "He's beautiful," he whispered. She nodded. "He is." There was an awkward silence between them, not the comfortable kind that comes from years of love, but the kind that grows when something unspoken stands between two people. "I tried calling you that night," he said finally, "but you didn't answer." She looked away. "I couldn't reach my phone. Everything happened so fast. I was scared." He wanted to believe her. He really did. But something in her voice felt like she was choosing her words carefully. "Did my brother stay long?" he asked quietly. She hesitated. "Just for a bit. He left after I gave birth." He nodded, pretending to accept that answer. When he left the hospital that day, his brother was waiting outside in the parking lot, leaning against his car. He looked nervous. His hands were in his pockets, eyes downcast. "I figured you'd come," his brother said, giving a weak smile. He didn't return it. "You said you wanted to talk." His brother nodded. "Yeah, I just wanted to clear things up. I know how it must have looked, but I swear there's nothing going on. She needed help and you weren't here. I did what anyone would do." He listened quietly. The way his brother spoke, careful, steady, almost rehearsed, made him feel even more uneasy. "I'm not accusing anyone," he said calmly. "I just want the truth. All of it." His brother's eyes flickered for a moment, but then he looked away. "You have it. That's all there is." The two stood there for a while, silent, the only sound being cars passing on the road nearby. Finally, his brother sighed. "Look, maybe this isn't the time. You have a new baby to focus on. Don't let your head get filled with nonsense." He wanted to argue, but he didn't. He just turned around, got in his car, and drove away. For the rest of the week, he tried to focus on work, but his mind wouldn't stop replaying everything. The post and the jacket, the tone in his wife's voice, the look in his brother's eyes. Every small thing felt like a clue pointing to something he didn't want to see. At night, he'd scroll back through old photos on his phone, pictures from family dinners, birthdays, quiet evenings at home. In some of them, his wife and his brother were laughing together. Back then, it seemed harmless. Now each smile looked different. A few days later, his mother called, excited about the baby. She wanted to visit to see her new grandchild. When she arrived, she brought food, clothes, and her usual warmth. The house felt alive for the first time in weeks. But while she was talking about the baby, she said something that made his heart stop. "It's so sweet how your brother helped her through the pregnancy. He told everyone how much she leaned on him while you were working so hard." He froze. "He said that?" His mother nodded without noticing his expression. Yes, he even told the neighbors how he used to drive her to checkups and help her around the house. Such a good brother. The words rang in his ears. He excused himself and went to the kitchen, gripping the counter tightly. So it wasn't just that one night. His brother had been involved all along. And everyone else knew. Everyone except him. That evening, he sat alone in his car outside his brother's house. He didn't plan it. He just drove there, driven by something between anger and heartbreak. The lights were on. Through the window, he could see his brother sitting at the table, head down, scrolling through his phone. He wanted to knock on the door. He wanted to ask, scream, demand answers. But he didn't. He just sat there watching. After a few minutes, he started the car and drove away. His chest felt tight, his eyes burning. When he reached home, his wife was awake, rocking the baby gently. She looked up at him and smiled faintly. "You okay?" she asked. He forced a small smile. "Yeah, just tired." As he watched her cradle the baby, his heart broke a little. He wanted so badly to believe that nothing was wrong. He wanted to trust her. But that trust had started to crack, and once it cracked, it never went back to the way it was. That night, he sat on the edge of the bed and whispered to himself, "If there's something I should know, please let me find out soon." He didn't know that the truth was already closer than he thought, and once he found it, nothing in his life would ever be the same again. Days passed, but the uneasiness inside him only grew stronger. The house was filled with baby cries, bottles, and blankets, yet something still felt missing. The laughter that used to echo in the evenings was gone. Every word between him and his wife now felt careful, like both were afraid of saying the wrong thing. He tried to hide his feelings, tried to act normal. But inside, he was falling apart. He kept thinking about what his mother had said, how everyone already knew his brother had been helping during the pregnancy. Why hadn't anyone told him? Why hadn't she told him? One evening, he came home from work and found his wife sitting in the living room, the baby asleep beside her. She was staring at nothing, lost in her thoughts. He took a seat across from her and said softly, "We need to talk." She looked up slowly, her eyes tired. "About what?" "About everything," he replied. "I feel like I don't even know what's going on anymore. Everyone tells me my brother was always around. You never mentioned it." Her hands trembled slightly. "He was just helping," she said quickly. "You were working long hours and I was tired all the time. He offered to take me to appointments. That's all." He nodded but didn't look away. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't think it was a big deal," she said, her voice growing softer. "I didn't want you to feel bad for not being there." He sighed, running his hands over his face. "I wouldn't have felt bad. I just wish I'd known. You have to understand how it looks." She turned her face away, tears forming in her eyes. "I know how it looks, but it's not what you think." The room went silent. The baby's soft breathing was the only sound between them. He didn't want to argue. He didn't want to accuse her. But deep inside, something kept whispering that not everything she said was true. That night, he went out to the porch. The air was cool, the sky cloudless. He sat there with his thoughts, staring into the darkness. For the first time, he wondered if he was ready to hear the truth, whatever it might be. The next morning, he decided to talk to his brother again. He needed answers. He couldn't live in half-truths anymore. When his brother opened the door, he looked surprised. "Hey," he said slowly, "you look like you didn't sleep." "I didn't," he replied. "We need to talk again." His brother sighed and stepped aside, letting him in. The house smelled faintly of coffee and something burnt from breakfast. They sat at the table, facing each other. "I just need honesty," he said quietly. "All of it. No excuses, no half-truths. I can handle whatever it is. But I can't live like this anymore." His brother stared down at his hands for a moment, then finally looked up. "I told you the truth," he said. "Nothing happened. I helped her when she needed it." He leaned forward, his eyes fixed on him. "Then why does everyone say you were there through the whole pregnancy? Why does she act like there's something she's not saying?" His brother didn't answer right away. He rubbed the back of his neck, avoiding eye contact. "Because," he started, then stopped. "Because I was there. More than I should have been." The words hung in the air like a heavy weight. He felt his chest tighten. "What do you mean?" "I mean she needed help and I was around. You were always working and she was lonely. I didn't mean for it to be like that. I just wanted to make sure she was okay." His voice was shaking now. He clenched his fists. "Did something happen between you two?" His brother looked away again. "No, I swear. But maybe I should have stayed away more. I didn't think about how it would look. I thought I was doing the right thing." He stood up, trying to control his anger. "You didn't think I'd find out? You didn't think I'd wonder why my wife calls you instead of me when she's in labor?" His brother's eyes filled with guilt. "I tried calling you that night too, but your phone was off." She was crying, scared, saying she couldn't do it alone. What was I supposed to do? Leave her there? He wanted to shout, but something inside stopped him. He couldn't even tell if he was angry or just broken. He walked out of the house without saying another word. His brother called after him, but he didn't turn back. That evening, when he came home, his wife was in the kitchen. She turned when she heard him come in. "Where were you?" she asked softly. He looked at her for a long moment before answering. "With my brother." Her face paled. "Why?" "To hear the truth," he said. At least his version of it. She stood there silently, her lips trembling. "And what did he say?" "That he was there more than he should have been." "That you were lonely." Her eyes filled with tears. "I didn't mean for it to happen like that. You were gone all the time. I didn't have anyone to talk to. He was there." He felt his heart ache. "So you did need him." "I needed someone," she whispered. "But not the way you think. Nothing happened. I just felt alone." He wanted to believe her, but the trust between them had already been cracked too deeply. Every word now sounded like it was hiding something. The baby started crying, breaking the silence. She turned away to pick him up, rocking him gently. Watching her like that, he felt torn apart. A part of him still loved her deeply, but another part kept asking, if she had to lean on someone else when things got hard, how could he ever trust her again? Over the next few days, he tried to go on with life. He went to work, came home, helped with the baby, and smiled when he had to. But everything felt empty. Sometimes he'd walk past his brother's house and see the curtains drawn tight. Other times he'd scroll past old photos of happier days and feel a lump rise in his throat. Then one evening, a small moment changed everything. He came home from work early, and as he stepped inside, he noticed something near the shoe rack. A pair of sneakers, not his. He froze. He knew those shoes. He didn't call out. Instead, he stood still, his pulse quickening. Then he heard movement, soft footsteps coming from the hallway. His wife appeared, startled to see him. Her face went pale. "You're home early," she said quickly. He didn't respond. He just glanced at the shoes again, then back at her. "Who's here?" he asked quietly. "No one," she said, her voice trembling. He stepped past her and walked toward the living room. But it was empty. He checked the kitchen, also empty. "Where is he?" he asked again, his voice breaking this time. Tears filled her eyes.
"He came by to drop off something for the baby."
"That's all?" He looked at her for a long time. Was it him? She didn't answer. Her silence was louder than any confession. He walked to the door, his mind spinning, and saw the front gate closing slowly. Someone had just left. He didn't chase after him. He just stood there, staring at the gate until it stopped moving. That night, he didn't say a word. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the sound of his wife's quiet sobs beside him. He didn't have the strength to comfort her anymore. The next morning, he packed a small bag. His wife woke up as he zipped it closed. "Where are you going?" she asked weakly. "I don't know," he said softly. "I just need some time to think." Her eyes filled with tears. "Please don't leave like this." He paused at the door. "I don't want to, but I don't know how to stay right now." Then he walked out. He drove for hours that day, past the city, past the small towns, until he reached a quiet place near a lake. He sat on a wooden bench staring at the water. He thought about the first day he met her, the first time she told him she was pregnant, the excitement they once shared. He wondered how it all fell apart so quickly. By evening, he finally looked up at the fading sunset and whispered to himself, "Maybe the truth is something I already know. I just don't want to accept it." He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but deep down he could feel that the truth, whatever it was, hadn't fully revealed itself yet. And he wasn't sure he was ready for it when it finally did. The lake was calm that morning, the water still and quiet, reflecting the pale sky above it. He sat there for hours, watching small ripples form and fade again. The silence gave him space to think, though the thoughts weren't kind. They circled the same memories again and again. The hospital photo, the jacket, his wife's tears, his brother's silence. He had left home because he needed to breathe, but even miles away he couldn't escape what had happened. The peace of the lake only reminded him of how loud his heart felt. By the afternoon he decided to head back. He couldn't stay away forever. The baby was innocent, and no matter what had happened between the adults, that child deserved a father's care. When he reached home, the house was quiet. His wife was sitting on the couch holding the baby close to her chest. She looked up when he walked in, her eyes red but soft. "You came back," she said quietly. "I couldn't stay away," he replied, setting his bag down. There was a long silence between them before she spoke again. "I know what you're thinking, and I know you don't believe me, but I swear I didn't want things to end up like this." He didn't answer. He just sat down across from her. "Then tell me everything," he said. "No hiding, no half-truths. Just tell me." Her hands trembled as she adjusted the baby in her arms. "It started small," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "When you were working late all the time, your brother used to stop by. At first, it was to check on me. He brought food, helped fix things. I didn't think much of it." She paused, staring down at the floor. "Then I started talking to him more. About little things. How tired I was, how scared I felt." He listened. "You were so busy and I didn't want to bother you. I didn't realize I was depending on him too much." He closed his eyes for a moment. "And then, one night," she said slowly, "I told him how lonely I felt, how I missed you being around." He said he understood, that he wished he could help more. I think that's when everything started getting confusing. He opened his eyes, staring at her. "Did you ever?" She shook her head quickly, tears spilling down her cheeks. "No, I swear never. But I knew what I was doing wasn't right. I knew I was getting too close to him. I tried to pull away, but by then everyone thought he was helping me because you were too busy. I didn't want to cause problems between you two." He leaned back, silent. Her words made sense, but they didn't ease the ache inside him. "Why didn't you just tell me?" he asked softly. "I was scared," she said. "Scared you'd think the worst. Scared you'd walk away." He nodded slowly, staring at the baby now sleeping in her arms. For a moment, all the anger inside him faded, replaced by exhaustion. After a while, he said, "I don't know what to believe anymore. I want to trust you. But every time I close my eyes, I see that picture. I see his jacket there instead of me." Her voice broke when she said, "I wish I could change that day. I wish you were the one there with me." He stood up quietly and walked toward the window. Outside, the street was quiet, the evening light fading into orange. For the next few days, they tried to live normally. He helped with the baby, went to work, came home, and tried to keep the peace. But something between them had changed. Even when they laughed or shared small moments, there was a distance, an invisible wall neither could climb. One afternoon, his mother called again, asking when she could visit. He agreed, hoping maybe her presence would make things feel normal again. When she arrived, she brought bags full of food and small clothes for the baby. Her excitement filled the room. She hugged them both and said, "He looks just like you." He smiled faintly, but something about her words made him uneasy. Everyone had been saying the same thing. "He looks just like you." Yet every time he looked at the baby, he couldn't see himself there. That thought scared him. He pushed it away at first, but it kept coming back, stronger each time. That night, after his mother had gone, he sat in the living room staring at the baby. His wife came in quietly and sat beside him. "What are you thinking?" she asked gently. He hesitated, then said, "Do you ever think he looks different?" She looked confused. "Different how?" "I don't know," he said quickly. "It's just, maybe it's in my head." She frowned but said nothing. The next day at work, he couldn't stop thinking about it. The thought had planted itself deep in his mind and wouldn't leave. Every time he saw the baby's face in his head, doubt followed. He hated himself for thinking that way. But part of him needed to know. A week later, when his wife was out visiting her mother, he made a quiet decision. He searched online for a place that did paternity testing. He didn't tell anyone. He couldn't, not until he had the truth. The process was simple. They mailed him a small kit with instructions. He followed them carefully, using a soft cotton swab to collect samples from himself and the baby. Then he sealed it in the envelope and sent it back. Afterward, he sat there staring at the mailbox, his hands shaking. He didn't feel relief, only guilt. But deep inside, he knew he needed this truth even if it destroyed him. The days that followed felt endless. Every morning he'd check his email. Every night he'd lie awake thinking about what might come. His wife noticed his distance, but he brushed it off, saying he was just tired from work. Finally, one afternoon, the email arrived. He sat alone in the car, the phone in his hand, staring at the message. His heart was racing so fast he could barely breathe. He hesitated before opening it. The words on the screen blurred for a moment before his eyes adjusted. Then he read them again, slowly. Probability of paternity, 0%. The air left his lungs. He felt cold all over, like someone had pulled the ground out from under him. He sat there for a long time, staring at that single line, trying to understand what it meant. The baby wasn't his. He felt everything collapse inside him, all the love, the trust, the plans. It all vanished in that single moment. When he finally drove home, his hands were trembling on the steering wheel. He didn't even know what to say. His mind was empty, yet filled with noise all at once. When he entered the house, his wife was in the kitchen, humming softly as she fed the baby. She looked up and smiled, but the smile faded quickly when she saw his face. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice shaky. He placed his phone on the table and whispered, "I got the results." Her face turned pale. "What results?" "The DNA test," he said quietly. "I had to know." She froze, her eyes wide. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then tears filled her eyes and she whispered, "You did a test?" "I had to," he said. "You left me no choice." She covered her mouth with her hand, trembling. What did it say?" He looked at her, his eyes hollow. "It said the baby isn't mine." Her body went still. Then she sank into the chair, crying silently. He stood there watching her, the pain so deep he couldn't even feel anger anymore, just emptiness. After a long silence, she whispered, "I didn't want this to happen. I swear I didn't. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. I thought I could bury it, that it would go away. I didn't want to lose you." He didn't say a word. He couldn't. He walked to the window, looking out at the dark street. The house behind him was quiet except for her soft sobs and the baby's small coos. For the first time, he didn't know what to do next. Leaving felt impossible, staying felt unbearable. He closed his eyes and a single tear slipped down his face. "I just wanted honesty," he said softly. "That's all I ever wanted." When he turned around, she was still crying, clutching the baby close. He could see her guilt, her fear, her regret. But none of it changed the truth that now stood between them like a wall that could never be broken again. He walked out of the room without another word. The door closed quietly behind him, but the sound echoed in his heart like thunder. Outside, the night was cold, and for the first time, he felt completely alone. The night after he walked out of the house, he didn't go far. He sat in his car for hours, parked just down the street, staring at nothing. The sound of his heartbeat was louder than the noise of passing cars. He couldn't drive away. His mind was too heavy, his hands too weak to turn the wheel. He thought of all the times he had dreamed of holding his child for the first time, of building a family together, of watching his wife smile as they raised their baby. Those dreams were gone now, replaced by questions that would never have clear answers. When the sun started to rise, he finally started the car. He didn't know where to go, so he drove aimlessly through the quiet streets until he reached the small park where he and his wife had once spent afternoons together. The park looked the same, children playing, parents chatting, the smell of fresh grass, but everything felt different now. He sat on a bench and tried to think. He wasn't just angry. He was lost. The truth had taken everything from him. His trust, his family, his peace. But deep inside, he also felt something else, something he didn't expect. A strange, dull ache that wasn't just pain. It was love, breaking apart but still there, refusing to disappear. By the afternoon, he decided to go back to the house. He didn't know what he was going to say, but he couldn't hide forever. When he walked in, the place was quiet. His wife was sitting on the couch, the baby asleep beside her. Her face was pale, her eyes swollen from crying. She looked up at him slowly and whispered, "I thought you wouldn't come back." He didn't answer at first. He just stood there looking at the baby, then at her. Finally, he said, "I needed time to think." "I know what I did," she said softly, "and I'll never forgive myself for it." "You didn't deserve this." He sat down across from her, his hands resting on his knees. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Why didn't you just tell me the truth from the start?" Tears filled her eyes again. "Because I didn't want to lose you. I thought if I stayed quiet, maybe it would all fade away. I was wrong. I ruined everything." He nodded slowly, staring at the baby's small hands. "You could have told me. I would have been angry, but I would have respected the honesty." "I was a coward," she said, her voice breaking. "I thought silence would protect us. I see now that it only destroyed us." For a long time, neither of them spoke. The baby stirred softly, letting out a tiny sound, and she gently rocked him back to sleep. Finally, he said, "I don't know if I can ever see things the same way again. Every time I look at him, I'll remember what happened." "I understand," she whispered. "You don't have to stay," he looked at her. "And leave him without a father?" "He has one," she said sadly, "just not you." Those words hurt more than anything. But they were true. The truth was cruel, but it was real. He stood up and walked to the window. The same view, the same house, but it didn't feel like home anymore. After a long silence, he said, "I'll pack some things. I think we both need space." She nodded slowly, tears rolling down her cheeks as she said, "I'll always be sorry." No matter how much time passes, he didn't answer. He went to their room and quietly packed a small bag. Every item he picked up carried a memory, the laughter, the small talks, the nights they stayed awake planning their future. It all felt like it belonged to another lifetime. Before leaving, he stood at the door looking at the baby one last time. The child moved a little in his sleep, unaware of the storm around him. Despite everything, he felt a wave of tenderness. The baby wasn't his by blood, but for months he had imagined himself as the father. That feeling didn't just disappear overnight. He leaned closer, brushed his hand gently over the baby's blanket, and whispered, "You didn't ask for any of this. Be good." Then he turned and left. He moved into a small apartment across town. The first few days were silent, almost painfully so. He went to work, came home, ate in silence, and tried to sleep. But his mind never rested. The quiet was filled with memories of what had been and what was lost. His brother tried to call him once. He didn't answer. He didn't want excuses or apologies. Some wounds needed distance, not words. Over the next few weeks, he started talking to a friend from work, someone who listened without judgment. It wasn't easy for him to open up, but slowly, he began to share his story. Not for sympathy, but to let the weight fall off his chest. His friend told him, "Sometimes, people break us without meaning to. But healing isn't about them. It's about choosing yourself again." Those words stuck with him. He started focusing more on small things: morning walks, reading, cooking, visiting his parents. He avoided social media for a long time. Even opening it brought back the memory of that photo, the one that changed everything. Months passed and the pain began to dull. Not vanish, but soften, like a scar that no longer bled, though it still hurt when touched. One afternoon, while grocery shopping, he ran into his wife's mother. She looked surprised to see him, but gave him a gentle smile. They spoke briefly, and she told him that his wife had moved in with her for a while, focusing on raising the baby. He nodded politely, though it stirred old emotions. When he got home, he sat for a long time thinking about them. He realized he didn't hate her anymore. The anger had burned itself out, replaced by something quieter: acceptance. He didn't forgive what she did, but he forgave her as a person. Not for her sake, but for his own peace. Later that year, he received a small letter in the mail. It was from her. She wrote that she didn't expect anything, but she wanted to thank him for the times he had been kind, patient, and loving. She said she would never forget what they had, and that she hoped one day he would find happiness again. He read it twice, folded it neatly, and placed it in a drawer. He didn't reply, but he didn't throw it away either. It was a reminder of what had been, both beautiful and painful. In time, he began to feel whole again. He joined a volunteer group, met new people, and slowly built a new routine. Life was different, simpler. There were still moments when he missed what could have been, but he no longer felt broken. Sometimes he would see a child in the park and feel a quiet ache in his chest, but now, instead of sadness, he felt something close to peace. One day, while sitting by that same lake where he had gone after everything fell apart, he thought about how far he had come. The water was calm again, just like that morning months ago. But this time he felt calm too.